Hi, everyone. This is Hal Krosman with Screenwriting U, and today we're going to be talking about writing multi-layered screenplays. Now, there's a whole bunch of reasons why we're talking about this, but some of it comes from a series of interviews I did with A-list screenwriters over the last couple of years, where we spent a lot of time talking about how they write beneath the surface. And the reason I did that was because I think that's one of the hardest things for people to be able to do. I think for most writers, a story comes to them and they write it pretty much on the surface without knowing whether it's on the surface or not. And for most writers, I think they're not really completely aware, or couldn't answer the question if you said, how do you build things beneath the surface? But when I'm talking to pros, this is where pros live, right? This is the kind of writing they do. So today, what I want to do is I want to shed light on this mystery. I want to give you a chance to have some strategies that you can use to write beneath the surface. I want to share a few of the things that I learned from some of these A-list screenwriters, some of their strategies. And then we'll go from there. So basically, here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to discover your beneath the surface story. So I'm just going to ask you to start looking for it right now. Start asking yourself the questions as we go through this. Assume whatever you've written already is kind of a surface level. Maybe you have one layer beneath that, but be looking. And it doesn't imply anything bad about you. This has nothing to do with that. The better your skills are for writing beneath the surface, the more you'll be perceived as a pro. So it's worth learning. We're going to talk about 8 different ways to build in depth, so you'll have some specific strategies that you can use. I'll do a quick analysis of the movie The Proposal to show you where they've built in depth there. And then we'll talk about the upcoming class, Writing Incredible Movies. This is our most recent class that we created over the last couple of years, specifically to have you writing at a level that many people would call professional. And it depends on who you are and how you write and how much you learn. But this program does exactly what it says. It gives you the tools to write incredible movies. And you'll see that as we're going through this. So there's been a change in the market, and this is part of where this conversation comes from. As television shows elevated, and you're probably really aware of this, TV shows have gotten much better than features. And the reason why is because they're sitting in a room, they have multiple writers in there, they know they have to hold an audience for 4 or 5 or 6 seasons, right? So they started exploring more tools that could help them. And most of those tools are under the surface, right? So we started looking at it and going, wait a minute, where are things going? Because if you're still writing from 15 years ago, you're in the dinosaur ages. and that's where I think a lot of the books that have been put out about screenwriting are, at least, even if they came out last year, they're from a model that happened usually before the streamers. So things have changed and we need to change with them. So the feature market, it's actually already moving into this new model, one that kind of mirrors TV quality. And that's part of what I'll be showing you today. So let's start with surface versus beneath the surface. On the surface, this is the obvious details of the basic story. It's usually what comes to you first. And it needs to be there. It's important. You need to have a surface level. But then there's what's beneath the surface. This is the deeper meaning that shows up through character, theme, layers, intrigue, subtext, right? It's the journey beneath the journey. And this, by the way, is what audiences live when they're watching your movie. So this is what, like a lot of times, if you ask them after the movie what it was about, they'll tell you about this part, not this part. So that tells you how much of a difference it makes when it's done well. Deeper layers is another part of this, and a deeper layer means something has been revealed, right? That provided a deeper meaning of either the plot or the lead character, changing how we experience them. So if suddenly you find out that the person you've been watching this whole time, who's been acting like a DEA agent, it turns out actually they're the head drug leader, right? If that happens, you're going to completely reinterpret who that character is and everything that's happened up until that point, right? And it's like, that's part of a great movie because it keeps the audience engaged on so many levels. And it has us have this deeper experience where we're searching, we're trying to figure it out, right? We are wondering what's happening and how that's going to affect the future, all of those kinds of things. And all of that happens because of a dramatic reveal. So layers are uncovered in a compelling way, you'll see, with a key emotional moment. Now, this is important. What you don't want to do is take like the kind of layer I just said, where we think the guy's a DEA agent, and then it turns out really, he's the head drug dealer and that kind of thing. When you have a layer like that, that's like so dramatic, what you don't want to do is you don't want to present it in two characters having a conversation with each other, right? You don't want to present it in the lightest possible way. You want to make this thing a major emotional moment that is deeply engaging, that surprises us in a big way, and was done probably at the worst possible time. So doing those kinds of things is another part of being a pro. You're not just telling us what the deeper levels are, you're giving us a shocking experience of it. So how do you find these? Because it's easy to get like kind of hooked into the surface story and think that's all there is. A lot of times I've had people pitch me stories and I'll go, okay, cool. And what's the deeper layer? And they'll go, no, I just told you the story. And I'm like, oh my God, this thing is perfect for a deeper layer. And then I'll start exploring it with them. And in a couple of minutes, we'll come up with something. And it makes a huge difference. Suddenly their story has so much more value, so much more meaning. It's so much more emotional, and it increases the chance that they can actually sell it. So it's worth knowing and being able to find that. So even if you love your surface story, I want you to start searching for what's under the surface. And if you have a two-layer story, and these are most of the ones that win contests have 2 layers. The ones that get made into movies have 4 layers or more. So if you have a 2-layer story, then start searching for what's beneath that. So pretend, and this is one of the easiest ways, pretend that your characters are hiding something from you. Pretend that this whole surface story that came to you originally was their cover-up. They're actually intentionally hiding something, and your job is to, make it your personal mission to investigate them, to find out what they're hiding, to find out what they didn't tell you, whether it's because they're lying or because they're ashamed of it or because they're afraid that it'll make you think something different about them, and have a great time uncovering the real truth, right? Look at your movie and let's pretend you've written a comedy. What I want you to do is I want you to look at that movie and I want you to just say to yourself, okay, My whole job is to solve this mystery. There's a mystery. What are these characters not telling me? What have they been lying to me about? What have they spent all of this time telling me this cover-up story to hide? There must be something great under that surface, right? That they went out of their way to hide it from you. Now, relish that process, walk around in it, have fun. This is not a painful thing. This is you searching for, wait a minute. They said this, and then they said that. I wonder if maybe there's this thing going on under the surface, right? Become a detective, go after them, and do that for a couple of days. Somewhere in there, you may find the thing that makes your screenplay absolutely great, and that sells it. So this is so worth doing. Once you figure out what that is, then what you do is you go to this. We're going to give you 8 ways here to build more engaging depth into your story. And by the way, these are things that the pros have mastered. That's why they're pros. They're things that along the way, they're skills that step by step, you're going to master if you're going to become a pro, right? So I'm going to present them to you today. It'll give you at least enough understanding to kind of know the direction you're going and give you a chance to start to at least try some of these out. If you like what you see, then come join us for a class where you can master them. First one is subtext, the meaning beneath the surface. And I think subtext is one of those things that people think are mysterious. Early on, back 20 years ago, I went to every screenwriting teacher I could find and I asked them, how do you write subtext? And I did this with 30 different screenwriting teachers. And most of them said some kind of line like this. They either said, well, it'll just come to you, or they said, work on your characters and at some point your characters will reveal it. They had no clue how to write subtext. They had no idea what they were talking about. I spent the next 6 months to create an expert model on subtext. We analyzed everything you could imagine, and it became something that became the thing we were great at almost immediately. And people were looking at us. I had producers talking with me about this. We had A-list writers having conversations about how you create subtext. Some of them loved my model on that, but that was our first model. It was the first thing that we created. Basically, here's what you need to know. There's a meaning beneath the surface. So anytime you have subtext, you have a surface meaning, what the audience is getting, what the characters are doing, and then you have that deeper meaning. What does it really mean? They could be doing one thing. They could be like, let's say they're putting up a storefront. And then what we find out is that actually this is where they're dealing the drugs, and they're pretending that it's one thing when it's really something different. There's lots and lots of ways to do subtext, but if you at least get this, there's a meaning beneath the surface that's not being talked about for the most part aloud. Second tool is what we call superior position. This is where the audience knows something that the other characters don't, right? So the audience, it may be that, we find out that this guy's a con man. He's running a con on this lady for the whole first part of the second act. We're watching him do this con. Up until then, maybe we believed him. Now we know he's a con man. Now we know he's doing this. We fear for her. We're worried about her, right? She doesn't know, but we know. So this is a really strong tool that gives your audience the chance to experience the meaning of the subtext, to experience the intrigue and what's going on in a way that's actually really easy to write once you've got it. Third, impending doom. The moment you create some kind of life-threatening or tragedy that's going to occur, right? It's coming up. We know that somebody is going to get executed. We know that the bad guys are just around the corner waiting for them. Whatever it is, we know something bad is going to happen. That creates that impending doom kind of situation, and it causes us to worry as an audience. Fourth one, intrigue. The easiest way to explain this is to plot craftily or underhanded. But intrigue is so much more. This is one of these conversations you really want to master. Actually, you want to master all of these, but intrigue is this experience where the audience knows something's going on under the surface, right? And they know something underhanded is going on, something bad is going on. There's something more to this character, or there's some kind of conspiracy happening with these people, and you don't know what it is, and but you know something's happening down there. It causes people to go into a state where they have to find out what's under the surface, right? They will do anything to find out what's under the surface. Now, think about your audience. Don't you want them to be constantly wondering and engaged in your story, right? These are incredibly important skills that aren't on the surface. They're about looking beneath the surface. Let's go to the next ones. Oh, so this is what it creates. It creates the need to investigate the plot under the surface. And which, by the way, is what I just asked you to do, having to do with your lead characters. And if you did it, if you went into it, if you just start going, okay, wait a minute, they're doing something under this surface story that I wrote that is really underhanded. What is it? Right? It start looking and you'll find it. Let's keep going here. Number 5, a scheme. This is a scam or deception against another character. And schemes can happen in all kinds of ways. When our daughters were going through junior high, we were on the PTA and the Parent Teacher Association. And we got to see so many schemes go on in that room. It was unbelievable the things people would do to try to take care of their kids or to try to protect their kids. But it was amazing to watch. It was like I really started want to do a reality TV show about that particular place. Number 6, I've mentioned this one before, but now we're talking about a conspiracy. This means you have multiple characters involved in a scheme. And so anytime you have a conspiracy, it's not just the scheme. One person could run a scheme on another. But with a conspiracy, you have a whole bunch of characters working together in many different ways to be able to make that scheme happen. Number 7, the wound. Most of the time, a wound is operating beneath the surface. And if you think about real life, right, most people have some kind of wound. I don't want to trigger that right now. But that's some kind of deep psychological or emotional injury. And when somebody has a wound, a lot of times it kind of dictates some of the things they'll do, but especially the things they're staying away from. And when they get in one of those situations where that wound is triggered, suddenly they're acting like a very, very different person. So this is, having a great wound for your lead characters, incredibly valuable. It causes us to feel empathy for them, right? It causes characters to avoid triggering the wound. It's so interesting what it can do. And then number 8, a hidden identity. A character is presented one way, then revealed to be another. So a lot of times that shows up as a layer being revealed about this character. We thought they were one thing, and then it turns out that they're another thing. It causes us to rethink the character and it causes us to rethink the story up until that point. Love having these kinds of things. When you have a hidden identity, and once we know what that is, often if the character continues to operate in that hidden identity, we as an audience are constantly experiencing how they do it, what kinds of steps they take, how they hide themselves, how they set other people up to believe in their hidden identity. It can open a whole interesting can of worms. So let's take a look at how this shows up. If you've seen the movie The Proposal, this is a movie, it's a rom-com, and I believe anybody who watches it would call it a rom-com. I probably have seen it with my wife and daughters 15 times. And it's interesting, they keep going back to it. Anytime we don't have anything to watch, they'll say, well, let's watch The Proposal. There's some kind of reason, right? There's something there. So when we put this slideshow together, I stood back and I went, wait a minute. I want to look at, instead of, say, a thriller, which almost all the skills we just presented could be used in a thriller, I want to look at maybe a rom-com. And so I watched this movie from that perspective. Let me show you what I discovered, because it's really interesting. So first, it starts with a scheme, right? The proposal, the early stages of it, it's like the inciting incident. What we find out is that Margaret is from Canada and that she didn't fulfill whatever was required for the immigration department, and they're going to send her back to Canada. So she puts together a scheme where she's going to marry Andrew, her assistant, in order to stay in the States, right? That's the scheme. And up until I actually started looking at this, I wasn't thinking of it that way. Second, then we have superior position. We know, the audience knows that they are faking the marriage. We're in on all the conversations between Margaret and Andrew as she tells him, we're just going to do this and then we'll get a quickie divorce. And she also then at one point he negotiates with her and gets a better deal, right? We watch all of this stuff. We know from start to finish that they are doing this scheme. So we get to watch it play out. Then we have the investigation. The INS agent, the immigration agent, has told them up front he's after them and that he's going to bust them. And he has threatened Andrew from the very beginning with 5 years in prison over this, which is part of what causes Andrew to negotiate a better deal. So this is happening. And then we have the intrigue. And this is all in the first act. The intrigue in this situation is, can they trick the INS? Can they trick immigration? And they're actively conspiring together. They're going through this whole process to be able to do that. But let's take it a step further. Now we go into the second act. In the second act, it starts with another scheme. And this scheme is they are going to lie to Andrew's family about them getting married. So the first scheme was the big one, which was, they're going to get married in order to keep Margaret in the country. This second scheme is they're going to lie to Andrew's family. And for Margaret, she thinks this is going to be easy. She thinks they're just going to go up, make the announcement, everybody's going to give her a hug, and they're going to come back and it's going to be over. Turns out that's not true. And the part of the reason it's not true is because of the secret identity that Andrew has. Now, I'd say most people wouldn't say that Andrew has a secret identity, but I want you to look at what happens here. Up until the moment that Margaret sees their huge mansion, up until that moment, she thinks Andrew is just a low-life kid who came out of college and desperately needs her. She thinks that the biggest event in his entire life is working for her. She thinks that he has never done anything amazing. And now she shows up at the house and she's like, oh my God, you're a rich kid. And he says, no, I'm not wealthy. My parents are. And she goes, that's what rich kids say, right? From that point on, they've got a different relationship because now we're on the other side of that secret identity. Now we're seeing Andrew as somebody who could easily go back to Sitka, Alaska, and own 20 businesses and be the most respected person in the town, instead of somebody that she tells to go get coffee, right? It changes a lot. So then there's subtext, and this subtext shows up the moment you see the father. The father walks up, and from the very beginning, he's talking down to Andrew. He's putting down his boss. He's putting down what he does. He's making fun of it, all that kind of thing. Those two have a problem between them, and it's that Andrew is working in New York with Margaret. And that's the problem. The real problem is that Andrew's not up there in Sitka, Alaska, about to take over the family business. So you see these issues all the way through, from the first time they meet all the way pretty much to the very end. This father has issues with his son that are built into their relationship and their subtext. We get into Act 3. And now Act 3 actually starts with another conspiracy. This is probably not the kind of conspiracy you'd normally think. This is the conspiracy between the women. They're all conspiring to get Margaret on the stage with the stripper. And most people would say, well, that's not really a conspiracy. But think about this. They spent all day telling Margaret they were going to go to do something special. They took her over there. Nobody has told her what it is. They go inside. They're sitting there. There's some kind of show that's going to be done. Suddenly, this stripper pops out. All the women are sitting there with these smiles on their face because they know what they're about to do. Margaret has no idea what's going on, right? There's a conspiracy. 4 women are conspiring to get Margaret on that stage and embarrass her as part of, this bachelorette party. Then we have the wound that is triggered. So they go back from the bachelorette party. They're trying on wedding dresses, and the Gammy is talking with Margaret back and forth. Everything's okay. Margaret's holding it together until we get to this one moment where Gammy gives her the necklace that came from Gammy's grandmother. So this has come from 100 or more years back in the past. It's been in the family forever, and now they're giving it to Margaret. Now, there's a wound that's triggered there. There's also something else that's going on, right? Margaret's up there scheming them. And we have the whole subtext, we are the lighter level beneath the surface is that Margaret is now starting to feel guilty, but this wound is even more important. It's triggered right here. It isn't revealed until we're on the boat. On the boat, Margaret's acting crazy. She's driving this boat at high speed. It's dangerous. And in the midst of it, she yells out these things about having a family. And she tells that she lost her family, her parents. They died when she was age 17. And she's never had a family, and she's never known what it's like to have somebody want to hug you. She's never known what it's like to have, somebody give her something that's been in the family forever, right? She's completely freaked out. So for the first time here, right at the end of Act 3, Margaret is starting to experience this family as something different than just the people who are going to help her trick the INS. Now, right at that point, now we're going to go a step further. We go into Act 4. And by the way, I set this up as 4 acts, you guys. Don't worry about this. what I basically did was I divided the movie in half, and I said, here, we're going to call this 30 pages Act 1, this 30 pages Act 2, the third 30 pages Act 3, and the final pages Act 4. So I just did that because it made it easier for us to think about this. So just don't worry about it. It's totally fine. This is still basically your 3-act structure. But let's go into that final act. In this final act, it starts with a conspiracy. The dad, who way back here in number 7, we saw his subtext. Now it's starting to play out in a big way. The dad has paid for the INS agent to fly up. And he and the INS agent are there to stop this thing right now, to stop this marriage before it happens. But the other conspiracy that's going on, which is Andrew and Margaret, they won't agree to it. And they say the wedding is on, it's going to happen. All right, so we're going into a wedding. Now this really is kind of the climax of the movie. And Margaret goes in, walks to the front. They're standing there in front of this person who is acting as the minister. It's the stripper. And the minister there basically starts talking about how important friends and family are, and how it's friends and family we're doing this wedding in front of, and it's friends and family who love them, and all of those kinds of things. And once again, they trigger Margaret's wound. And Margaret can't deal with that. She finally stops the wedding, and now we have the big reveal. Margaret turns to the audience, to her friends and family, her new friends and family, and she confesses, because for the first time she's realized she loves this family, right? And that's the subtext of that reveal. But she confesses, she tells the INS guy, you're taking me back, let's go. And she leaves. That just brings us to one more scheme and reveal. And the scheme this time is Gammy tricks everybody. She acts like she's having a heart attack. She tricks everybody into flying so that she can get Andrew to the airport in time to stop Margaret's plane. Now, Andrew is going through all kinds of emotional stuff in this moment. He's not sure what he thinks, but he just knows he doesn't want Margaret to leave. So he goes along with it. And ultimately what this reveals at the airport, and then finally when he gets back, is that Andrew actually does love Margaret. Now let's pause for a second, because I want you to see this. If I gave you this structure and I said, look at all these things going on in this movie, and I didn't put the words for the proposal up there, but let's say I put up the name of a thriller, my guess is you would buy every single bit of this, right? I would too. I'd say, okay, that makes sense. This fits a thriller structure, right? It's like it fits that. But what I'm telling you is all of this can be used in pretty much any movie. We just did it in a rom-com, right? It could be done in a drama. It could be done in a comedy. It could be done in a sci-fi movie. It could be done in an action movie. What this is a whole series of different skills that were used beneath the surface to make this rom-com something that was kind of emotionally addicting for their audience. I've talked with lots of people who have watched this movie multiple times. And this is the kind of thing you want to be building into your screenplays. Now, what you've seen today so far is what I call a mastery session. Essentially, this is a mastery session that covered 3 lessons. And we do these in different kinds of ways. But this particular mastery session, it came from the outlining part of our program that I'll talk with you about in just a moment. What we did was we looked at outlining. I talked with a bunch of A-list screenwriters and realized they build in so much more into their outlines before they even write a first draft. And because they do that, their outlines cause that first draft to be the equivalent of a third or fourth draft, right? It makes it so much stronger if you build all this kind of depth in, and we have multiple ways to do that. But before you write your script, you want to already have a multi-layered outline. Again, that's how the pros write. So if what we did today was important and valuable to you, stay with me for a couple minutes. Let me just walk you through this upcoming class that does exactly what the title says. It helps you write incredible movies. And you'll see here, we have 100 lessons in this class and 38 mastery sessions. So you've just been through basically a mastery session that covered 3 different lessons. So you at least have an idea of the kind of quality that this program brings. But let me just walk you through it. This is a 6-month-long program. You're going to write the best script of your life so far while doing this. And because of it, you will be able to go back to any of the other scripts you've written, and you will see 30 to 50 different ways to improve them. I promise you. Here's what this is. It's 10 modules over 6 months. Module number 1, you're going to start by crafting a pitch that can sell. Most screenwriting classes actually start you out and you just start writing or you just start outlining or that kind of thing. What we did talking to A-list screenwriters was we realized, you know what? Those guys are creating the pitch before they write the script. And because they're creating the pitch beforehand, they already know in advance that it has a real chance of selling. So we're going to walk you through exactly how to create your pitch, how to brainstorm it, how to come up with the kind of concepts that really do have a chance. Then in module 2, you're going to make a bunch of big picture decisions. And we're talking about, big picture character decisions, the journey of the script, things like that, that are going to essentially be what shows up in the trailer later on. So these are important decisions, and how you make them, if you make them from an amateur perspective, you won't have a chance of selling. If you make them the way we're presenting them, you will. From that point, then you're going to look at your lead characters, and we're going to focus on what about them could attract actors. We have a specific model that I generated while I was interviewing actors' production companies. We went to George Clooney's company. We went to Matthew McConaughey's company, Sandra Bullock's company. We did this with 32 actors' production companies, and we found out what causes them to sign on. So you will create your lead characters through what it takes to be able to get an actor. Now, I know all of this is different than how most people think when they write, because this is a model that'll have you writing at a true professional level. At that point, we go into module 4, where you're going to make your outline incredible. Again, what you just saw was basically comes from 3 of the lessons of module 4. But we've got 12 lessons in that module, and every single one of them is going to help you create the kind of outline that will have you writing the best script you've ever written in your life and increase your chance of being able to make something happen with it, whether that's doing well in contest or getting a script option, or at least having something you can show managers that they'll go, wow, you know what you're doing. Module 5, now you're going to write the first draft. And we're actually going to do 5 drafts in this program. So you will come out with something amazing, but I'm going to take you through how the pros write. So your first draft, you're going to master this thing called high-speed writing. And this is something that's so important in this industry. If you have the ability to write at 3 times the speed you write right now, you will be able to meet any deadlines. You will be able to get things done faster, and you will be able to impress every producer you work with. So it's worth learning just for that. In module 6, now you're going to do your second draft. And again, instead of doing what most people do in a second draft, which I actually sent out a survey and had 100 writers tell me what they do in each draft. What most people do in a second draft is they go, okay, let's make sure we go through and just kind of clear up what's working, not working in the first draft, and then I'll just do an edit. And they start at page 1 and they edit all the way across. The problem is that they're locking in the big problems. So what we do instead at a second draft is you're going to create a problem-free script. And I'm going to give you 4 different skill sheets where you're essentially going to go through and look to see, do I have this problem? Do I have a structure problem? You'll check every piece of your structure. If you have a structure problem, then you just simply go to that one particular skill and it gives you the exact how-to to solve it. Do I have a character journey problem? If so, I'll give you the exact how-to to solve it. So you'll have a whole bunch of different problem solutions, strategies that you can apply immediately, and that will get you to a problem-free script. That's your second draft. In your third draft, now you're going to take that problem-free script, and I'm going to give you a bunch of strategies to double the quality. You will play those out across your script. You will find every place you can where you can double the quality on a big picture level. And I'm talking here characters. You're going to double the quality of characters. You're going to double the quality of your scenes. Then in the next draft, module 4, or module 8, draft 4, excuse me, you are going to go through and write amazing dialogue. Now, you've got good dialogue up to this point. We're going to give you a whole bunch of different dialogue strategies and tools that you will be able to look at almost any line and make it so much more interesting, so much more compelling. And because of that, anybody that reads your script will go, oh my God, this writer is amazing. In module 9, then it's about beautiful wordsmithing. And here we will focus on the exact things you need to be able to wordsmith your script perfectly without going into the kind of things that will, violate or actually disqualify the script, right? We totally believe in the show, don't tell method, and that's going to be all the way across the vast majority of your writing there. But we have some strategies so that you still can cause a reader to be deeply engaged, wondering and worried, and experiencing actual emotions that the characters might have without you having to tell them what they are. So it makes a big difference. By the time we're done with this right here, you've gone through, you have written a script that is better than anything you've ever written. It is based on exactly what the industry needs. It gives you a much, much better chance. Then we'll go into module 10, where you will be putting together your 4 great pitches. And we know what we're doing on this. Cheryl and I, before we got into screenwriting, we were producing, we were pitching to major production companies and studios. So we've gone through and said, what are the 4 pitches that writers really, truly need? Most people only put together one of the 4, and then they get surprised. Or because they don't have the others, they don't take other avenues that could get them in the door. So here we'll give you all 4. You will learn exactly what works. You will learn exactly how producers perceive them, what producers need in your pitch, so that everything you're saying will have an impact. Now, again, this is a 6-month-long program. And every day of this program, you'll be learning something new. You'll be growing as a writer. You'll be increasing your belief in yourself, because that's the other part of what we do. This program is focused on empowering you not only to be a better writer, but also to be able to interact with the industry. So you'll feel more confident when you get in those doors because of what you did in this program. The normal price on it is $12.99. The class is actually starting May 1st. As soon as you sign up, and I'll give you a special in just a moment, as soon as you sign up, we will send you a pre-lesson on how to create your concept. So you can start brainstorming concepts right now. And I would recommend you write down the concepts that you already have, the ideas that you already have, and then you spend the next couple of weeks walking around and brainstorming other ideas, talking with your friends, using the techniques we're going to give you. We're going to give you some high-level techniques for brainstorming concepts, so that by the time you get to the class, you've got at least 10, 20, 30 ideas you can pick from, and then you pick the one you most want to write and you move forward. Now, again, it starts on May 1st. Normal price is $12.99. Let me give you a special that's only available for the first 10 people. This is how our system works. Once those 10 sign up, then it'll bump up to the next price, and then it'll bump up to the next one, and it'll keep going until on the final day, it'll be at $12.99. So right now, for the first 10, you can get in at $749. That will save you $550. Now remember, this is a 6-month-long class. If you need payments, there's a link over there for payments. That will get you in at $129 a month for 7 months. That's about $4 a day, which is, the equivalent of actually a Coke at McDonald's, yeah. So if you want to master these skills, if you want to be writing at a level that is significantly higher than you ever thought you could, come join us. And by the way, if what you're wanting to do is to start winning contests, we have had many, many, many contest winners at the top. We've had contest winners at Nickel. We've had them at Final Draft. We've had them at Page. We've had them at Austin. This program gives you the level of skill you need to be able to get at least to a pretty high qualifying level in those contests. And if you do everything we're talking about here, you have a very, very good chance of being a finalist or a winner. So if those kinds of things are important to you, I promise you, this will make a huge difference in your writing and your chance of success. All you got to do is click one of those links. And if they're not linkable, just write this down, bit.ly, bit.ly/SU-WIM, W-I-M, Writing Incredible Movies. If you want the payment plan, it's bit.ly/WIM-payments. And you simply write that down, put it in your browser where you put a normal web address, click return, and then go through the sign-up process. Again, the moment you sign up, within about 10 minutes, you will get the first email, which is the one that gives you the tools to be able to create high concepts. So if this is something that's important to you and valuable, I promise you, you will be so glad you took this program. The people who are just finishing up the first one that we did are raving about it. We've already had a few people who have made deals in that program. We've had a few people who have gotten to the finals level in contest during that program. They actually submitted a script when we were back in module 8. And they're at the finals level right now. So this can make a significant difference for you, and it will take you far above where most writers write and exist. I promise you, by the end of this, you'll understand exactly how to write incredible movies. So come join us. You will love what you learn in this class. Thank you for being with me today. This is Hal Krosman with Screenwriting U, wishing you the very best. And I hope to see you in this program. Bye-bye, everyone.